Well, I guess we'll figure out if we're gonna have the dog issues.
Yeah.
So what's going on, guys? For everyone who doesn't know, Chris and Jaden are Chris is a parent of Jaden. Jaden's an incredible junior golfer, one of the best probably in the country for his age. And so I thought it would be really cool to kind of kick off this podcast by interviewing them and kind of digging through what's worked for them, kind of what their experience has been in junior golf. And for those of you who are also parents of junior golfers, might be able to gain some insights from them. So thanks so much for hopping on with me today, guys.
Thanks for having us, Connor.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I look at you guys' story, like the first time we kind of talked together and I was kind of like looking at your numbers, I was like, wow, these guys like really figured it out. You guys are in California, which is obviously incredibly competitive. I know we had the USGA qualifier a little while back, so I definitely want to touch on that. But just talk to me about like how you guys kind of like got into the golf when we start, like how'd you guys get to where you're at?
Yeah, so for me, I actually was a tennis player growing up, and my grandparents introduced me to the game when I was 13. And it just really kind of stuck with me. I actually stopped playing tennis competitively after I graduated high school, and I started, working in the executive world. And basically, they said, hey, if anyone plays golf, you get an opportunity to play with like the president, vice president of the company. And I was like, sign me up, because no one played golf, because back then golf wasn't cool. And lo and behold, Tiger Woods comes along, and the game just completely transcends and grows to levels that we could only begin to imagine. And so I said, if I ever have a kid, I'm definitely going to introduce them to the game of golf. I think one of the biggest things is, in anything we do, again, we're Asian, we're not very big, we're not going to be very, very tall. So there are a lot of sports you can maybe become a professional athlete in. But I know that it definitely connected me in the corporate world to a lot of different, and opened a lot of doors for me. So, I was half joking, I was half serious. So, my wife and I, she doesn't play any sports. She didn't play golf or anything. And we ended up having our son. And I said, okay, he's 3 years old now, and let's see if he can hit a ball or whatnot. So I actually did a T-ball first, like just high-end coordination. And he was hitting a bat with the ball really quick. So I put a little golf club down on the ground, and he smacked it pretty well. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. And then the drive, chip, and putt got announced by the Masters. And I'm like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. You know what? We're gonna get to the Masters. We're gonna do the drive, chip, and putt. And then as Jaden got a little bit older, 4 or 5 years old, one of our friends actually goes, hey, Chris, have you seen the Netflix series, The Short Game? And I'm like, no, I don't know anything about it. And so I went and watched it, and it just takes you down this journey of junior golf tournaments by U.S. kids, right? And it was like the most amazing, coolest thing ever. And I immediately went on, and looked up U.S. kids local in Los Angeles, and lo and behold, here's this local tour. And so that is kind of what got us started down the junior golf path.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Jaden, what was kind of your experience with that? I mean, like starting off at 3. I know. Oh, when I talked to parents, there's somebody who's just like terrified of like introducing golf. They're like, golf's gonna be boring or something like that. What's it been like for you?
I mean, for me, when I was that young, I didn't exactly know what was happening. All I knew is that I just really loved watching the game, playing the game. I just enjoyed it a lot. I grew up watching Tiger, obviously, just watching the miraculous shots he could pull off, watching how he managed his game throughout the course. And I just wanted to kind of grow up and be like that, be like him. And then as I got older, I realized, okay, I'm pretty good at this. Like I could kind of do it. And then, I had his support, my mother's support, all my family. So I just loved all the experience I was getting, and was just trying to basically see if my game could compete against high level players as well.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah. No, I mean that's awesome. It's funny to hear you bring up Tiger because every now and then when I talk to kids, I'm just like, oh, like Tiger did this. I'm just like, man, like that. It's been so long since Tiger was like great. I'm just like, is this like even like a reference people get? Like, it might just be like, oh, Jack Nicklaus used to do this. But so I guess like you must have gotten, because you're 13, right?
Yeah, 13. Yeah.
Right. So you must have gotten like kind of like the back end of Tiger, like back in like 2012, 2013, kind of seeing like some of the comeback. Cause like I remember when I got into golf, I think I really started like following it like maybe in like 2008. So it was like right when he like won the US Open. I was like, this guy is crazy. And then, yeah, and then everything obviously went south for him after that. But then seeing the comeback and then the Masters, it's incredible the kind of like ripple effect that he had on golf. I mean, I don't know if anything's gonna come close to that. Like even with all the talent that we have today, like it's crazy. So okay, so you get into golf. You got your local tour. Obviously, not everybody who feels like they're good at golf and has a local tour ends up being as successful as you guys have been. So like, walk me through like how did that happen? Was it just like you just like roll out of bed and you're like really good? Did you guys like get a really good instructor? Talk me through that.
Yeah. So we just like look. So I'll never forget his first time that he played in his first U.S. Kids tournament. It was at Los Robles in Moore Park or out that way towards I did a couple practice rounds, and it's 9 holes. I don't know, 1,500 yards or whatever it was for 5-6-year-olds, and he shoots a 45, and I'm like that's really good. Like what I can that's an acceptable number at that age, and so he goes and plays his first tournament. Right, I'm caddying, get to carry a little bag with I don't know 5 or 6 golf clubs that were, I kid you not, I mean they were so short. The guy at Roger Dunn had to cut it down, and the grip handle was almost to the to the hosel because it was that short. It's like and so he goes out and he shoots a 52, and I'm like, my world's over. It's over before it even started. Oh my gosh, what's going on? How does he shoot a 52? And I was like, all right, well, that was a good try. Maybe we'll find something else he can do now. So I mean, I'll never forget all that, right? And it was just it's been such the journey and the process, and honestly, a big portion of the whole journey is the parents and the kids, right? So meeting other parents and kids going through similar journeys and whatnot has been probably one of the biggest pieces that has really kind of kept us in the game. I can't tell you how many amazing families we have met over the course of the years. And I don't know if it's like that across the country. I know I have some other, families that tell me it just seems like in California that there's such a great connection with so many people, and everyone's willing to help each other out, right, to make the kids better. And I'll tell you that's a big piece of it too, right there. Is just seeing the camaraderie of everyone coming together and trying to help each other's kids get better, right? And there's no doubt. I mean, I think this, and I'm sure you've talked about it, and we hear it many, many times, but it's really true. If you want your kid to get better, they got to play with better kids. It's just, it's not a comparison thing. It's not to say, hey, why can't my child be like that? It's to say, hey, learn from what you're seeing from what they do, and do you have the ability to do it? And then obviously, definitely coaching is a big thing. I definitely support the idea of being multi-sport. Don't play just golf or any one sport. Try to really mix it up. He played baseball and he played golf. The only thing I did differently with that was I just didn't want him swinging a bat right-handed because it actually messed up his golf swing, or at least I did. So I told him, hey, you're going to swing a bat left-handed. Look, you're not hitting home runs. Who cares? You're 4 years old. You're 5 years old. So just go out and have some fun. Play baseball lefty, but you'll play golf regular. And then as far as being competitive, I will tell you from our experience that sending Jaden to the U.S. Kids World Championship at Pinehurst, starting at 6 years old, I felt helped develop him as a player, as a competitor. You're introduced to an international group. I think, at 6 years old, there was probably 120 kids, I think, and again, it's 9 holes, 3 days of golf, but you're in a completely different setting, right? And I just think it really helped to build and develop his character as a competitor. He finished top American as a 6 and 7 year old, and then he tried to do it as a third time as an 8 year old. But again, I think it really helped us with his development to have that experience.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, I think you touched on a lot of really interesting things there. The first one I kind of like want to touch on a little bit is, like you said, play with better kids, and I think I completely agree with that. And one of the things that I find really interesting, obviously, like you guys have a little bit of an advantage there with like being in California. You guys won the lottery on that one for golf and for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But one of the things I get a lot of pushback on is I'll say, like, hey, playing the best tournaments that you can play in, playing these better events, push yourself, trying to get into these qualifiers. And I'll have parents tell me, it's just like, yeah, but like my kid, they're not going to be as competitive or like whatever. So like how would you speak to that? I mean, when you're playing in maybe a tournament where the other kids like are a lot better than you, like how do you guys see like handling that emotionally? How do you guys see handling that from a development perspective?
I think it really is all about perspective, right? And what type of expectations are you drawing up, or are you trying to come up with, when you talk to your junior player? For me, again, it was one of those things where I think I saw that Jaden, mentally could handle playing older kids. He actually grew up, I think he was probably at like 8 years old, playing with a couple of older kids, local kids here that were really good. And I think it just, again, helped develop his game and helped him mature in a way that allowed him to play up in tournaments, right? But everybody is different, right? There is no roadmap. You as a parent have to really kind of look at and decide, what you think is best for, your junior player. And again, right, talking to your coach, your local coach, or whoever it is, but you as kids, for instance, right, they don't let you play up. You have to play the age division you're in, right? But then there happened to be some other local tournaments where you could take, I think at the time he was 10, and I put him in a 12 to 15-year-old event or whatever. And, I mean, it definitely got some looks, but the tournament director said, I know he can play. So that's fine. I know he won't slow anybody up or anything like that. So, we'll let him play in it. And, but here's the thing, right? I mean, whether you're in, whether you're playing tournaments, starting at, when you start getting into that 12-year-old age group, it's a 12 to 19 or 12 to 18, right? It's not I mean, there are tournaments that may be smaller that you'll play at 12 to 13, 12 to 14, but eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to play a large age range. And the sooner your junior can adapt to that, the better, and so here locally we have the SCPGA Junior Tour, which has a development part of it, right? Then they have a Players Tour, and then they have the Toyota Tour Cup. And so it's just a matter of, you understanding, where your kid is at. But the most important thing is, again, it's golf. There's only one winner in these events, right? You have to be realistic to progressions, right? So I will tell you, again, I know it's a long-winded answer, sorry, but when Jaden started this year out, so he qualified for the Toyota Tour Cup in December of 2022 at 12 years old. His first 4 tournaments or 5 tournaments on the Toyota Tour Cup tour were not his best. I mean, he was shooting in the 80s. He was finishing, somewhere between 25 and 50 out of 65 kids. And at one point, I think his 3rd tournament in or whatever, he finished 62nd out of 65th. Okay. And he didn't cry or anything like that. I didn't get upset. I said, hey, that's got to be motivation for you to figure out, what do you need to do, to get better? How do you, whether it's course management or whatnot, because you're out there watching these players and you see what they're doing. What are they doing differently? Right. So then we take a break from Toyota Tour Cup. We end up doing, some other stuff, the US Open, blah, 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 all that stuff kind of happens. And then we get back to the Toyota Tour Cup in the fall. And he has about 3 or 4 events to play to hopefully get a top 10 finish so he can be exempt for next year, and just goes on a run. He gets second place, he gets fourth place, and then he gets a top 10 or whatever. So that's all you can ask for, right? I mean, whether it's you as a parent or you as when you go to work, you just want to see them growing, and you're hoping that they're growing from that, they're learning from that. And if they are, great. If they're not, then you have to kind of reassess and kind of rethink things out.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So like, I want to dig into that a little bit because, one of the things I find kind of like when working with students and having played golf myself is one of the things that's the most difficult for kids to really handle is like, sometimes you're going to play like not good golf for like a stretch, and not like you had a bad tournament or 2 tournaments, but like you're going to have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tournaments, and your headspace kind of needs to be like, okay, cool. Like, we're getting reps, like we're figuring out like what are the things that break under pressure, like what do we need to learn from this, rather than like, oh, I suck. Right. and so like, talk me through like how, Jaden, like where was your headspace at going through those? We haven't talked about the USGA, so maybe this is a good time to talk about that. Where's your headspace going into that? And then kind of like, what did that do for you, like going forward? Like, what changed?
Yeah. I mean, those events that I played before shooting in the 80s that just hurt a lot. It got me to kind of just rethink, like, what can I do differently in my next tournament to just keep improving and stuff. And I think at one point when I finished 62nd out of 65 kids, then I just started working really hard. Like, I started waking up probably at like 5 a.m. to go to the range at like 5:30 to figure out my swing, like before school, just so I could try and figure out my swing, figure out what am I doing wrong? Is there something I need to fix? Talking to my coaches. And then I had a better tournament after that because I was able to think things out. And then the USGA thing happened. So my dad just put me in that tournament to just see, well, is he like, what can he do against these guys, right? Like, they're professionals, high amateurs, just playing the game for a living. And when I got there, I was like, geez, these guys are big. They're like grown adults, and I was like, okay. So I was thinking, well, just try my best. There's not a lot of expectations for me out there. I mean, I was mostly just trying to figure out my game, compare it to the guys I was playing with, like see what are they doing differently than me. Are they managing their game differently? Is it just distance off the tee, or is it short game? Like, what are they doing, right? So I ended up doing like really good. I down the stretch, it was not going very well, but I was able to kind of grind it out and just mentally get through it. And then I was able to qualify in after like getting through in a playoff. So that there just boosted my confidence a lot. And I think confidence is a very big thing in when you're trying to compete at high levels. Because if you're not confident in yourself, you're just putting doubt in your mind, and you're not going to be able to compete at high stages against high players.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, confidence is huge, and it's such a difficult thing to like kind of gather. It's one thing to be if you could just tell people like, hey, you just got to be confident, and be like, all right, cool. But it's a lot harder to develop that. So like, when you go to this event, like, you're not necessarily playing amazing, and you're kind of going with like, all right, part of me is like, these guys are huge, like, this is interesting. What do they have in their game that I don't have or do have? What did you see? Like, what was the difference between their game and yours, or was it a little bit closer than you might have expected?
I mean, some parts was definitely closer than I expected, but I definitely could tell that they understood what they were doing, and they understood their game. So it was like, sometimes maybe playing against high level people, you want to try and stay close with them. Like, maybe you want to hit the ball as far as them. You want to try and outscore them. You're like seeing what they're doing, and you just want to beat it. But it's like what they do is they just focus on their game. Like, they're not even worried about what the other guy's doing. They're just focused on what is the best shot for me and what can I do in this situation. So they were just really good at managing their game and mentally just staying in the moment and being really strong. So I think that was just a big thing for me to see, because I mean sometimes when I play, like if I see a kid in the field back then that was really good, I was like, oh, I want to see what he's doing. Like I'm checking what he's doing all the time. And it's like, you can't do that. You just need to focus on you. Like it's you and the course out there, not anybody else.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're saying that too, because that's one of the things that I can always tell someone's a little bit messed up, and they're just like, "Oh, well, I finished like this versus like all these other kids," and like that's kind of bummer. I'm just like, that's not even like the thing you should be focused on. Like you should just be trying to like I was kind of like screaming about this, and I'm like, get your scoring average down, playing good tournaments. That's it. That's all of like junior golf, like that. If you want to play college golf, you want to go Stanford, just like get your scoring average as low as humanly possible and playing the best tournaments you have access to. Like that's it. Like if you do that, you're going to be as successful as you want.
I mean, the one nice thing is we were doing junior golf camps since he was like 9, 10. Okay, like going to colleges, right? And the one thing that rung home to me from every college coach was the results are the results, right? But they just want to see, you know, as early as you think it's reasonable to do, to put your kids up against the best and put them in these pressure situations to see whether or not they can handle it. Okay, because that tells them a lot about their character, their development. So great. You know, one of the best things is, you know, they say is, look, in golf, everyone's great is great. It really is, right? I mean, like, you know, but it's when you're playing bad, how bad or how good is your bad? And that's really what separates the kids, right? Or anybody really. I mean, that even the adults, right? It's literally when you're playing bad, how are you right here, right? And what are you doing to understand? I don't have my best game today, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shoot a score anyway, right? Tiger Woods, front nine at what is it, the Tour Championship, whatever. He missed every fairway, still shot 3 under. Like, how do you do that, right? And that's really what I try to focus on with Jaden is, you know, again, everyone's going to have good days and everybody knows how to play on good days. It's how do you handle the bad days? Or, you know what? It just wasn't your weekend or your week or whatever. What do you know, how do you handle that?
Yeah, for sure. No, I remember, I think it was about a year ago, I was playing in I'm in Memphis now. I used to be in Las Vegas, and I was playing in the county am with guys in Las Vegas or Nevada, like Golf Hall of Fame. And I was pretty happy with myself because I was in the same group with him on the second day. So I was like, all right, cool. Like we're doing pretty good. Yeah, I get to play golf about once a week. So this is awesome. And I was playing with him, and I wasn't even sure how my game was. Like I was just kind of approaching. I was just like, yeah, you know, like we'll see how this goes. Like I don't know if I'm any good. Like whatever. It ended up being better than I thought I was. I went out and played with them, and I realized I was like, oh, like the thing that's separating us or like what we're doing from anyone else in this is just like we're just not making any like dumb mistakes. You know, like we're gonna miss some greens, we're gonna make some bogeys, we're gonna 3-putt every now and then from, you know, decent distance. Like we're gonna hit some bad tee shots, but it's like, do I find the golf ball? Did I like miss the green and just like a place where I could hit it? You know, like those kind of like basic things is just like so much like what dictates like good from bad. And you think about like on the one hand, it's like, oh, 72 or 71 or 73 is like hard score to shoot, but you like break it down, what it actually takes is like it's mostly like hit the ball in play, like hit your wedges on the green, like try not to 3-putt that often, like don't make double when you miss the green. Like it's really basic stuff, but then it forces you to look back in the round and be like, huh, well, how come I make doubles so often? how come I can't hit a lob wedge solid? So no, it's just so funny to hear you guys say that as well. It's just like it's really about managing what happens when things go bad rather than like, oh, I've got my best game, because everyone knows you just like aim at the pin, you hit it there, you make birdies.
It was funny as his coach assessed, you know, did like a mental assessment. You know, Rick Sessinghouse he's you know, he does both mental and swing with Jaden, but from the mental side of it, you know, he assessed him as a golfer and his personality. And I think it was a D. Was it a D? Like I forgot what the D stood for, but I'm gonna say dynamic, right? So he goes, "You're a player that's gonna make a lot of birdies. Like it's just you know but you're also gonna bring bogey and double bogeys into play, right?" So he just goes, "So that's just what your round's gonna look like, right? It's gonna be one of those rounds where you could have a lot of birdies, and shoot a really good score. But there will be days where you will have those bogeys and doubles, and it's how are you going to, you know, manage through that, because you're that type of player. That's just what you're, you know, and that kind of really opened our eyes up a little bit too, right? To go, okay, like now we understand the type of player he is and what a scorecard could look like because of it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think it's so interesting. And it's like when you're looking at your scorecard, it's really easy to be like critical of it. But I think that it takes a lot of maturity to kind of look at it and be like, okay, this is kind of like who I am. And like maybe I want to like clean some of this stuff up. But I don't need to go into every single tournament and like critique the crap out of myself. You know, it's just kind of like, oh, like I kind of played to like who I am, and it kind of like worked out for me this time, or it didn't really work out. I got some bad breaks, like whatever. Like you're trying to get better at that one thing, like go play in this next tournament. Let's see how it goes. So it's just interesting how it always comes back to some of these like really like simple basic things, and golf's such a complicated game. You know, there's all sorts of information out there about the golf swing or strategy and all this different stuff, and for some reason it always comes back to kind of like very like simple ideas, which maybe is just because we're like, you know, at a high level, you know, those things, everything else is just kind of obvious, but it's again like funny to hear you guys say that. So after that, obviously, the USGA stuff, we start playing better, a little bit more confidence. What's your guys' plan to kind of like keep up that momentum? Is it just kind of like keep on keeping on, or is there something you guys have in the works? Or how's that look?
That's a great question. And you know, we, like I told you earlier, so we just finished playing the season. You know, he had his last 2-day tournament this past weekend. Then he had the USGA 4-ball yesterday with one of his really good golf buddies, and you know, they did phenomenal. So you know, we're gonna take a look at the AJGA and Toyota Tour Cup schedule. You know, for the AJGA, the past couple of years, we've only played one junior all-star each time because of the scheduling and the fact that he was so young. I didn't really know what he should or shouldn't do. But you know, now that he has exemption next year for AJGA events, we're going to look at, you know, the opens, obviously the larger ones, and just try to understand, you know, what is the best opportunity. But again, the biggest thing is access. You know, having the ability to try to do these events when you have to travel. You know, it's a 3-day event plus the practice round, so you know, typically it's a week of travel. That's not affordable. I mean, that's not cheap, right? That's an investment, and you know, it's something we, you know, thankfully to this point, we've been able to kind of do more locally. It will be interesting to see, you know, how much we can do, you know, at that next level, you know. But the other things that we're obviously looking at, you know, are the USGA stuff. So he does have the US, you know, Open Junior Am, US Am that we'll be trying to do qualifiers for. Because he won the SCGA Junior Amateur in October, he got exemption into the SCGA Amateur, which will be held at Satakoy in July, and then the SCGA Cal Amateur, which will be at Sherwood Country Club in June. So those are some really cool opportunities for him again to kind of test himself now that he'll be 14 at the end of January, so next year, and kind of see, you know, where do we get started with the new year, and then what that looks like mid-season.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So I want to touch on the traveling, but before I do that, because I think that's really interesting and how that ties to school. But before I do that, I kind of touch on something you just said there, which is opportunities. Like one of the things that I think is you guys clearly have figured out, but I think it's important for a lot of parents to understand is like when we think about tournaments and trying to perform in tournaments, if you go into like one tournament, you're like, this is the one. Like this is how it's going to go. I always kind of describe it like a lottery mentality. It's be like, this is the one that's going to set me over. Like same mindset goes for like your golf swing. It's one day my golf swing is going to be so good, it's going to go out there and shoot 65 all the time. It's like that's not going to happen. So like you just lined up there. You talked about the AJGA stuff. You talked about some of the higher end California stuff. You talked about some USGA stuff. But the thing that stands out to me about that is like you've got a nice lineup of like some very high level events where like you don't have to do well in like every single one of those to be like wildly successful with that. And I think that's just kind of an important thing to like draw attention to is like when you have that many opportunities, you don't go into any one tournament like this is the one. You're just kind of like, all right, you know, I've got my schedule and I'm just going to go out there and do my best, right? So I kind of want to like draw attention to that for anyone watching. But to go back to kind of like the travel and like taking that week off for like an open, I think that's I think a lot of people struggle with that. So like, how do you guys think about that when it comes to like school? Obviously, there's the financial part of it. I would imagine, Jaden, that there's at least some degree of like, oh, like we're doing all this stuff for this. Like, I want to play well. Like, how are you guys handling that?
Yeah, so right now, being in 8th grade, it's a little more flexible, right? But high school, I'm sure, can be quite a bit challenging and different. Again, one of the things that the junior golf camps, one of the coaches said, hey, look, if for instance, you're interested in East Coast schools, then probably look at an AJG event on the East Coast, right? If you're looking at, so it also can kind of direct where you might want to play tournaments is based on where you think where your junior player wants to go for college, right? I know Jaden has, expressed his wants to probably stay on the West Coast. He likes that better, but I don't know. Again, like I said, it'll be interesting to see. We had the great fortunes of playing on the Underrated tour this year, and having the access to play on that tour that Steph Curry has, with his sponsors, including like Under Armour and CDW, KPMG, Subway, right? It really provided some great insights to golf in other parts of the U.S. And that was stuff that we haven't. I mean, yes, we did go to North Carolina, but in between that, really, there wasn't a lot of golf that we have played. So we got to see different courses, different types of grasses, like all the different things that and so having that access was amazing. It was something that I truly believed helped his development this year as well, right? I mean, being able to go every 2.5 weeks to a different stop was just, again, it's not something we could have afforded, but through the Underrated tour, it gave us that chance to do that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So like with school, even in 8th grade, like how do you guys handle that? Like, what's it like talking to like, I guess, teachers, like getting the homework set up? Like, I mean, that's even if you get that okay, like, I mean, Jaden, like that's a commitment from you to like get the stuff done, even even without the teacher being like, hey, right here, like do it,
Yeah. I mean, I just tell my teachers, like, I'm going on a golf trip. I won't be here. Is like, what would the work look like and stuff like that. Some teachers are nice. Some teachers are not so nice. So some of them will be like, oh, yeah, I'll make sure to post it online for you. And then when you're able to just check it out, if you're able to finish it, that would be great. If you're not, I'll give you an extension of time to try and finish up your work. So that's very nice of them. Some teachers are just like, well, you know what? If you're missing, it's your responsibility to check online and if I post it or not, and just get it in on time or else I'll have to mark down points. And I'm like, okay, I will definitely go and check it. So I make sure to kind of just set like a little reminder, like, oh, this is the class I need to really focus on. This class is giving me an extension. So just making sure I'm communicating with my teachers and seeing which ones will kind of give me some space and which ones are being a little harder. So I mainly just try and do that. And then so I could focus on my tournament.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I remember being in school, so I remember the teachers are kind of like that.
Yeah.
Chris, like, how do you feel about like how do you take that as far as just because I know some parents out there have like reservations about like taking time off school and that like they feel like that might impact like academics negatively. I'm assuming you guys still value academics pretty highly. So like talk me through that as a parent.
Yeah, I just tell them, look, man, if you don't make it in golf, you better have something to back yourself up with. So just being honest, like, look, what is it? 1% make it to the PGA Tour. So that there's a big percentage where, you got to have something to fall back on. And I'm not saying you got to be to the extreme. Well, if you really want to be a PGA golfer, you got to just go all in. But, you have to have your studies and academics. But I mean, we're not the crazy, parents that are like, you got to do everything great, right? Like, where it just stresses them out. I mean, you try to work with them and you try to, support them as best you can. Um, he's doing good in most classes. I still don't understand how he continues to get a B in PE. Yeah,
I did that one too, so I'm
so, that's a head scratcher. I'm just like, yeah, communication, right? Communication is key with the school. LAUSD has actually been very, very generous to us in helping us, and I know it's a challenge. There's no doubt about it, and there's no right answer to it. Again, it's a balance, and we've looked at homeschooling, we've looked at a lot of different things, but we want him to try his best. And again, I don't think he isn't doing it right now anyway, but to just live kind of a normal life, right? To just enjoy being a kid when you're not on the golf course. I mean, the person you see on the golf course is definitely not the person you see at home. So it is it's just completely two different kids. And I have a lot of people that remind me, because when I'm at home, I'm like, you're so mature, you're so responsible, when you're on the golf course, right? But when you come home, lights are on, doors are open, clothes everywhere, and you're like, so that's what I said. Like, it's just trying to find, and again, for everybody, it's different. So just trying to find that balance.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually interesting you bring that up. So, like, I think this is an interesting topic for a lot of people, especially for the kids out there. Jaden, how do you separate like your life from like your golf? Like, this is just kind of like one of the things that I kind of find that if sometimes when kids are just like it's golf all the time, it's always like this, just like all consuming, it becomes like really difficult to perform. So I was curious, like, what is that like for you?
I mean, for me, I obviously love golf a lot. I'm very passionate about it, but I can't do it every single day for like 8 hours or whatever some kids do, because I feel like just over time you'll burn out, and it's just too stressful. For me, I mean, I try and practice as much as I can, but I'll maybe get on the course like 3 times a week if there's no tournament. And then the other times I'm just trying to finish up my homework to try and get ahead or something. Um, I play video games with my friends that probably maybe live a little farther away from me. So I just try and keep it like kind of normal, like just almost like a normal kid's life outside of golf. And then when I step on the course, like that's like my business time. Like that's where I'm focused. I'm trying to just stay in my zone and then not allowing like anything else to distract me or something.
Okay, gotcha. So that actually that brings up something interesting because I completely agree with you. And it's like in my experience, like when we look at the kids who are the most successful, it's like you'd think it's like you got to go grind for all day every day, and I mean I was that kid. I was in junior golf. I was like, let me just grind all day, and that did not work out. And I was looking around. I was like, how come there are these kids that like don't even spend that much time out here, and they're like way better? Like it was super frustrating. It sounds like you're one of them. So what is like a normal week for you? I'm sure you're out there playing golf. I'm sure you got stuff you're working on in your game. But like, how do you divvy that time up? Are you playing more golf? Are you practicing more golf? What's your practice look like? Talk me through that.
So a non-tournament week would look like Monday is, you go to school. I wake up at like 6:30 now, and then I head out maybe at like 7:30 to school. Get there by like 8, and then spend like whatever time till 3:20. I get out. I'll probably come back home and finish up homework and stuff. So that'll be like a Monday. Tuesday is a short day for me in school. So I'll get out and then I'll go to my workouts on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, I would practice golf with one of my friends. We either practice at like Brookside, or thankfully he has access to Oakmont Country Club. So we'll try and just figure out where we'll go. I'll practice Thursday also with him again, And then Friday, we have this kind of tradition with 3 of my other buddies that I've grown up playing with as long as I can remember. So we'll all 3 go out to Brookside and we'll all play every Friday if there's still sun. We'll go out and play and just enjoy ourselves. So that'll kind of be like a non-tournament week. A tournament week is definitely a lot more serious. Like I kind of shut down like video games, and I kind of prep, like I go to sleep earlier and stuff like that. And then Monday I'll be practicing, Tuesday's workout, Wednesday's practice, Thursday's practice, Friday's practice, like just to make sure I'm when I step on the tee or whatever, my hands don't feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I haven't played. So
Sure. Okay. So, and then what do your like weekends look like?
weekends, I go to bed like probably really late. I go to bed at like 11:30 playing video games, and then I'll probably maybe be doing something around golf where it's just practice, maybe a practice round somewhere, playing with a buddy. I like getting out on the weekends because I mean it's just a lot of time for me, so I can try and enjoy myself with friends and stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm either with golf buddies practicing, or I'm with my family and stuff. So
Gotcha. Okay. So when you say like you're practicing, like I guess how many holes would you say you're playing like per week? Like 18, 36, like
per
less than that,
week,
more than that?
I'd say I'm playing probably roughly around 36. I like practicing on course. Like I don't really like ranges and stuff because for me, I feel like I don't have a target necessarily. I like trying to feel out courses where it's like I can manage my game around the course and stuff. So that's personally what I like. Other people may be range rats and like just staying on the range for like 4 hours, but I can't do that. I can't.
This is why I'm digging into this with you because I think this is like one of the things that people like really struggle to understand is just like how do good players effectively practice, because like I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but like you can go out there on the driving range and like grind for days on like a particular feel and like it looks right. You go to the golf course, you're like, I can't do this. You're like, I just wasted all this time. Like this sucks.
I mean, it happens. Like he like it wasn't this tournament. It was the tournament before, right? He did everything like he normally would do, right? And then he literally goes, "I can't rotate." I'm like, what do you mean you can't rotate? Like you're in the tournament and you don't know how to rotate? He goes, I can't rotate. He's like hit the balls like, and it was absolutely hilarious, right? Because something happened, and you get those moments, right? And I'm like, all right, well, guess what? You got whatever you got left to play. So you got to figure it out. And then he calls up his coach, and his coach goes, he's like, well, were you wearing shorts or pants? He goes, I was wearing pants. He goes, well, were they like too tight on you? He goes, I don't know. He goes, well, next time, he goes, tomorrow wear rotate pants that you can rotate it. So he's just having fun, right? Because he just, that's golfers. Sometimes my grip doesn't feel right. Things just, you said, right? It just gets that way. So you can do all the practice you want. You get into the tournament, something happens.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one of the things I always kind of talk to kids about is like what you have, like how you feel about your game that day is like part of like what you have for that day. And like part of managing it when it's bad is like, okay, I don't have it. Something feels really weird. It's like, can I just figure out how to make contact? Can I like have a prayer of like starting this ball like somewhere online? Do I have some concept of like which direction it's going to curve? And then you can kind of start to piece together. And it's like, then you get like, the intrusive thoughts, be like, oh, I've got water over there. It's like, okay, thoughts, like I'm just gonna hold you there over on the side. We're gonna figure out how to make contact with this, try and get through a round. And it's just I think it's interesting because like everyone has the same thoughts, but it's how we like relate to those and how we kind of like work through it. I think that separates the good golfers from maybe the not as good golfers. But no, that's cool to kind of like go through and dig into. So we're spending a lot of time on the golf course. one of the things I wanted to touch on, this is kind of like switching gears a little bit. You mentioned this one of the first times we ever talked, Chris, about kind of like the stuff you guys did to gain some distance over the last year or so. I know a lot of parents kind of like struggle with there's like, oh, maybe my kid's like smaller than the other kids, maybe they don't hit it as far, so like I'm kind of like hesitant to put them in tournaments because of that. And I feel like we've already kind of touched on that a little bit of just like you want to still get out there and give them the opportunity to try and figure it out in their own game. But like, talk to me about like the distance stuff, because I was really fascinated by that.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, Jaden started complaining about his back, and so I took him to a spine doctor, actually the one that worked on my back, and he just said he's having growth spurts. So there's just parts of the body that are kind of compensating right now for the golf swing, right? And so we started doing like a program to help with the muscles, and we literally stopped golf for 3 months. And it was like right in the beginning of the season. It was like December, January timeframe, and it was crazy because it's like you kind of almost go, these things happen for a reason. And I was freaking out. I honestly thought, he really hurt himself, and this could be not good. And after coming out of the sessions, it was twice a week, core, resistance bands, no weights, own your own body weight, planks, stuff like that. He got stronger. And I was like, whoa. And it kind of like caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. I was just hoping his back would stop bothering him. And he got stronger, and all of a sudden there's a little more pop on the ball. And I said, oh. So, so we kept doing the work. And then eventually we met with Ken, and he did a TPI assessment of Jaden, and understood, where he was really strong, where he had a good base, a good core, and then where the opportunities were. And so between him and his coach, so Coach Rick, they would talk, right? So, hey, I'm noticing this when Jaden shifts laterally or this or that. And then, can we work on building the structure around that? And then they build and design the work on that. So when we started with Ken in December of 2022, Jaden was 99 miles an hour swing speed. I don't know what the ball speed was at the time, 146, 148. And we did 12 straight weeks of once or twice a week with him, just one-on-one. And then we broke off into group sessions. And so we're finishing the year out at about 110, 111 miles an hour and 162, 163 ball speed. So, and it's just core training, really. And then Jaden is disciplined enough himself. He has like bands and stuff like that the coach gives him to kind of do stuff with. And he'll just, he'll gradually work on the stuff. So, I mean, he's 5'2", 117 pounds. So that's where he is. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So like what kind of like workouts were those? Like, was it like medicine ball stuff, or was it like standing on a ball? Like, what did those workouts look like?
In the beginning, it was resistance band type stuff,
Okay.
right? Planks, and then he had that ball that was like he had to stand on it and kind of like keep his balance and then just different things like that to really build the coordination. He would take a medicine ball and kind of throw it into the wall or throw it into the different kind of motions like that type stuff. Mm-hmm. And just kind of built it, from there, right? So, but one of the biggest things he gave Jaden very early on, which I really appreciated, so a lot of people, when they walk out to the range, they use that as their warm up, right? So they'll go and hit shots and stuff like that. He actually gave him 6 different things that he needs to do before he ever hits a ball, right? So these are 6 different exercises that activate the muscles before you ever go hit a ball. And that's been something that has been just a game changer especially in cold weather, when you're out there and it's cold, to get the muscles at least a little stretched and a little warmed up before you go and hit a ball.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting, because that was really fascinating to me, like talking to you guys, because I have a lot of experience with like developing club head speed at like kind of like post puberty. For me, I didn't start playing golf until I was 16. my club head speed was around like 113. I'm 6'2", so I got that going for me. But then I started lifting for strength. And it's like just focused on strength, and got up to like 120 over the course of like 4 months. And so every time I talk to people, I'm just like, we got to, eventually, like if you're strong, you're going to be, fast at golf. It's just been my personal experience. So I see all these people out there. I was just like, oh, you got to like do all this like golf training. I'm just like, I don't know, like you just get strong. Like that works pretty well too. But I wanted to kind of dig into that with you guys, because like we're still on like the younger end as far as like fitness. I'm not going to go tell an 11-year-old and be like, let's get 300 pounds on squat rack, So I was just like, man, like, no, but that's interesting. It kind of taking the added stability and the coordination, kind of like you said, I think is makes a ton of sense. We're getting more effective at using what we have, kind of, and we're also kind of strengthening that. So that makes a ton of sense. I know we're kind of like coming up on time here just a little bit, so there's just a couple things I wanted to get from you before we jump off here. First thing, what is the best advice that you have gotten as a parent, kind of going through this process, or for you guys as a team? What's been like the most impactful piece of information that you've ever gotten?
It's going to sound cliche because everybody says different things and whatnot, but I think, the thing when you're doing this at 6 and 7, right, and you're seeing some of the older kids, you're like, oh man, I wonder what it's going to be like when I get there. And you're so anxious to get there, right? And we as parents, like, just naturally want to kind of help, right, or control certain things or whatnot. And I will tell you that I forgot. I want to say Jordan Spieth's dad definitely said it, but it's kind of one of those things where you have to kind of take a step back and let the player take control of where they want this to go in their game. And I can't stress this enough, right? So it's something I wanted to say before we got off, right? So Jaden actually, so I don't remember when it happened, but there was a point where I stopped going to his practice. I stopped going to the range. Like, I sit in the car. He might come out and go, hey, can you hold the camera, or hey, can you look at something? But I stopped doing all of that and allowed him to kind of go, figure it out for himself, right? And one of the biggest things that happened this year actually was, again, completely unprompted. This was his decision. He comes to me and says, Dad, I don't want to play baseball anymore. I just want to focus on golf. And it broke my heart. I love watching. I don't know anything about baseball. I mean, I do know baseball, but I don't know baseball in the sense of like I could coach him or anything. But I just loved watching him play. I mean, he's been doing it literally the same amount of time as he's been doing golf. And I thought maybe we could squeeze one more year. And he did something like in that January, February timeframe, whatnot. But when before the spring season started, he looked at me and goes, I just want to focus on golf. And that is something that, we as parents have to not try to direct them on or whatever. It's like we have to allow them, when they're ready to make the decision, whether that's at 13 or 4, whatever it is. Again, everyone's different. He just came to me and said, this is what I want to do. So I think it's really about enjoying the journey and the process, being there to support them, but not like, just understand the hat you're wearing. Again, it took me a very long time to do this. When it's time to be a parent, be a parent. When it's time to be a coach, be a coach. And when it's time to be a supporter, be a supporter. But the ultimate thing is, allow them to make mistakes and to grow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because if you say to them, hey, why did you do that? Or why did you do this? They're never going to learn. Right. I give them a little bit of grief sometimes by going, hey, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? So how about we take a wedge out of a bunker instead of a 7? Well, just you're fooling around, right? You're messing around. But you want them to learn and grow through mistakes, because that's how we did, right? We got to make the mistake. And you hope, like, hey, kids touches a stove, it's hot, they burn themselves. You think they're going to do it again? Probably not. So it can, it's just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. Definitely don't try to compare your kid to other kids. Put them in a position to excel by playing with better kids. That is one of the greatest things you could absolutely do. Put them in tournaments where it does push them, and who cares about the results? Just look at how did they handle themselves? How did they carry themselves? And don't focus so much on the results, and see how they can grow. I guess would be it. Jaden, what about for you?
For me, a really good piece of advice I've gotten is kind of trust and communication with people. Like, sometimes when he tells me things, like if there's something wrong with my swing that he sees when I ask him to come video me or something, sometimes I don't trust him. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way that like,
Really?
right?
No, come on.
And it's like you always have to have like other people's advice, right? You always kind of have to take it in and kind of trust what they're saying, because obviously he's not here to hurt me. They're not here to hurt me. They're just trying to help me and to help better me, right? And it's just about talking with like your coaches and stuff, and talking with him. Like, my coaches aren't always going to be there, and I always need to have kind of a second eye, because I can't do everything on my own. I can do some things, but not everything. And when things aren't going well, I need someone to kind of fall back to and just be like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So just trusting, communicating with my dad and my coaches, just to help better me and stuff.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. And I think I want to dig in part of that, and I think we can call it. You guys both like went straight to like essentially like trust. Like you need to be able to have that kind of like mutual trust there. Chris, I want to ask you this first. As a parent, like I think we're in kind of this space where it's a little bit of like which comes first, chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah.
I think this is something a lot of parents like struggle with, is like, well, they say they want this, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. And like for you, what's been your experience? Was it you trusted him and then like things kind of like worked out, or things worked out and then you started trusting him? How did that work for you?
No, I think it was just me personally, saying, this is what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to do something like this. So it was more about just trusting the decision of, hey, we're going to go down this path, this journey together, and let's see where it takes us. And like I said, Connor, I can't stress this enough. But if you try to do it alone, I think it's just really hard to do. I think again, when you have people that you can share ideas and frustrations with, and just all that, it makes it so much more tolerable. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's been roses and rainbows the whole time. This has been a journey. It's been a grind, and I will say I probably, as the parent, made it harder for him than anything else. So having that support system, one, for him having friends that he can talk to complain about us, and then us having someone that he can talk to really helped everything. So, and that's where it's gotten us to this point today, which I am so grateful for, because I was really scared at one point where I might be pushing him away from not only the game but from me. So yeah.
Definitely. That's yeah, no, I think that's a good place to end things. I think that's a great like takeaway for everyone as well, is that the importance of that relationship, in addition to just like golf and all the stuff, it's that growth, is being able to trust each other, and to give that trust and be like, okay, cool, like things might not go perfectly, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that I'm trusting you, and I'm giving you the opportunity to succeed or fail. So this was a lot of fun. I feel like we could keep going, but I know you guys have a time stop here. So, thanks so much for jumping on and kind of sharing you guys' perspective on everything. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you. Your insights and your information and knowledge of the junior golf. There's just some amazing stuff that you put out there for free, and it's just so nice of you. So thank you for inviting us, and I'm sure we'd be happy to jump back on again if this was a podcast that people enjoyed. But we really appreciate it, and we hope that you and your family and everyone have a great, happy holiday.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. You guys as well, and thanks so much. I do my best to help everybody, but it's been awesome having you guys on. Take care.
Thanks, Kyle. Okay, bye.
Thank you.